Hey everybody, this is Zach, and I'll be guiding you through a quick tutorial on the speed graph in After Effects. I know we have a video available, but I just figured I'd slowly walk you through it. Sometimes the videos, they go through quickly, and we're all kind of starting from scratch here, except for a couple others that have some experience with it. So we're just going to be going very basic once again. I do apologize for those with experience, but just follow along as you wish. Scrub through it. If you have experience with After Effects, you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm sure you already know how to use the speed graph, but occasionally it's a nice reminder. So what I have here is HDTV 1080 29.97. This is good quality video. Not great for low-end computers. This right here, HDTV 720, is a better option. So let's start out with that, just in case people don't have a fantastic computer. Resolution is not what the computer is going to output. It is what you are viewing. So if you have a nice computer, set it on full. I always have mine on half, even with a monster computer, which maybe someday I'll show you guys. So half is great. You could even do a third or quarter if you're really dealing with a sloppy machine, but half should be great. Alright, so now I have nothing in my composition. So let's right click, add a shape layer, and as soon as it says add shape layer, we have some options that pop up here. If you'd want something other than a square, you can click and drag and get the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold down shift so I get a perfect circle, and I'm just trying to orientate it around the aspect, anchor point. My goodness. So with that, the anchor point will establish the center, and whenever we move it around, it'll be located somewhere near and close to this anchor point. Same thing with rotation and scale on something and stuff. It will scale from this area and not any other. If this is moved over here, sometimes the rotation will go around that anchor point, along with some of these other options we have here in transform. So try to make sure that your anchor point is established right there in the center, or close enough. Great. So, selection tool, and I'm just going to shift and drag it off the screen. I'm just locking it into that axis point, holding down shift. And I'm going to turn on the keyframes. There we go. We established a point in the keyframe, and we're going to move it on up to somewhere further up in the keyframes. So right here we have an axis that'll drag it along so it's nice and even. And once I've moved it from the original location, it starts adding a new keyframe. And this is what's animating. Without these keyframes, it'll move your object, but there will be no animation. You won't see these dotted lines trying to give you information about the speed of your object moving. Alright, great. And the other thing you can do is drag this along and stop in different areas and click on the center button. And it'll add a keyframe to that exact location. Sometimes it's useful for stop animations where you want it to stop for a second and read and then keep moving. But for this, I'm actually going to get rid of it. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that this was add at that current time. Alright. So I really wanted to talk about keyframes in great detail today because, again, they're sort of the foundation for making really nice, clean animations. And Keyframe Assistant is something we'll be looking at quite a bit. So Easy Ease is a quick and easy way to make a somewhat smooth animation. So I'm going to click on it. You can see it's changed the icons here, so it's no longer a diamond. And if I hit spacebar, can see it has a nice smooth transition from one point to another and back. Another way of viewing this, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to introduce the speed graph today or go back over it, is because this information, although very tricky and annoying, will result in some of the cleanest animations that you can create. So just clicking on speed graph, or the graph editor, sorry, we can already see some general information about position. And I do have this selected. Don't try to select them all, it won't show much, or it'll show something goofy. You just want position selected. Again, we're just going to try to deal with some very simple information, and if you want to go on and add more, you can, but just try to master some very basic stuff for today, and we'll output some decent work. Alright, so now that I have position selected, we've added easy ease, we have the graph editor open. Let's see what these little arms do, these little bridges. If I click and drag, have them all selected, you can see it's dragging the peaks up, so the positioning will be more dramatic, the movement will be more dramatic. Ah, fantastic. So what it's doing is, what we're seeing is speed ramping up, and then slowing down, and then ramping back up, and then slowing back down. And that's the whoop, whoop effect that we're kind of seeing here. And that is kind of the general idea of how to play around with this. Right now I have all of these selected at once, so that's why it's showing it pulling apart like this. But you can easily just select on one node and make sure to hold down shift. You want to be dragging it all over the place. Just pull it out a little bit and see what happens. So right now we've got this sharp peak right here in the graph, which means, again, it's ramping up speed and then slowing down, ramping up, and then slowing down. Let's try dragging it out a little bit more, playing with the arms a little bit. Let's see what that does. Whoa. Ooh, very nice. So you can see as we adjust this, it gets a lot better. And there is a maximum for the peaks. One of them is the point at which things start and end, and the middle. You can kind of see these peaks as actual nodes themselves. Occasionally you won't be able to go past that middle peak area. And you can see this one, the high peak, the highest end is very sharp. And this one can be a lot of fun to play around with, to add to different areas. This is a really nice zippy transition. And of course, like most programs, there's the ability to break different effects, and I just did that. You can kind of see there's this very sharp peak. And it's not a bad effect. It's probably just not wanted in this area. So there we go. These little shortcuts are very helpful, especially when you create a mess like I did. I actually broke the animation that I was trying to make. And drag you back down. Now for class today, please test it out with different objects. Maybe play around with scale. position, maybe even opacity, making things appear and disappear, and you'll still get the same speed graphs, the same thing you're seeing right here. If it's hard to see the curves and you're zoomed into like a really small portion of it, there is a great little thing you can click on. It's Fit All Graphs to View, and it'll manage this graph into an area that you can view, like what I have here. But occasionally the default is different for different computers. Another thing to check is to see what properties are being available. The graph editor and the selected properties, which is position. And I'm not showing animated properties. There isn't anything to see here. We're not really adding much beyond that. And you can see there's a bunch of extra stuff, audio waveforms, in and out points of layers, layer markers. But again, we're just looking at graph tool tips, snapping, auto zoom is great to have clicked on. And once you start clicking on the little nodes is when you start getting these converts. Easy ease, easy in, easy out. And I mean, those easy ins and easy outs is what we're seeing at the beginning and end of these peaks. All right, let's turn off that awful graph editor and see what it looks like here. Looks great. You can see that these have been adjusted. They've changed from the symmetrical points that I had them set at. And if I wanted to, I can pinch these together. And I don't have to go back to the graph editor for that. So once you've edited it once and you've kind of played around with the peaks a little bit in the graph editor, you can go back and turn it off and then play around with the positioning in the timeline. This sort of combo is a great head start to getting into After Effects, because once we start playing around with effects and tons of stuff in our layers panel, timeline, these things become more and more important, and understanding the very basics of it is going to help you so much in the long run. I know personally because I went to school for something outside of After Effects, and the teacher just grilled us on try not to make things too complex. And he was right. I occasionally broke an entire project just because it was impossible to go through and try to find some of the stuff that I didn't label right, or I just pre-comped it, which we'll talk in a little while, maybe in a class or two. Where's pre-comp? Ah, there it is. Pre-composition. It's a way of grouping things when things get too complicated or you need to manage a graphic in a certain way. Anyways, this is all I really wanted you guys to check out. Please test out the graph editor. Bring in more shape layers. Test it out in different ways. If you just have your shape layer selected and you don't see anything going on in the speed graph, it's because you haven't selected a property yet. So just note that once you have something clicked on with the stopwatch, click on that position, click on your graph, or I'm sorry, the attribute, which is position, and it will show you this wonderful graph, and you'll be able to click on these little nodes and adjust them to how you like it. Oops, I double clicked on it. Anytime you double click on these, it'll give you this box so you can further manipulate, but we're not going to talk too much further into velocity. It's just the ramping. You see these numbers here, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That's the velocity at which the speed is going to be ramping up and down from. All right, please test this out. To render videos, it's very simple. Composition, and add to render queue. Control M. Once you do that, you can check out the settings just to make sure everything's all set. You do not have to do full resolution. You can do half or third. Again, it will output still the best resolution. It's just while it's previewing it and rendering it, it won't be at 100%. But it will render out at 1280 by 720, and it should look fine. Okay, hit OK. That looks great. Losses. Let's click on that. Oops, sorry for the double click. Format. Let's try MP4. Oops. Oh, sorry. H.264, which is a MP4. So format, just one more time. H.264 would be great. RGB, everything out here looks great. We don't have to check any of this other stuff. There's no audio. And let's see here. Output, let's see where this is going. Okay, I do not want to save it in local disk, so this is going to be handy to note. This is where you save location of your rendered video. So I'm going straight to desktop, and we'll just say test. Oopsie, teat. Let's do test. Just make sure that's checked, and hit render. And of course, my animation is ridiculously long compared to what was animated. So that's something I could have messed around in the composition. Oops. Composition settings. And so I'm only using about 2 seconds of 10 seconds here. So what we can do is select all of it and say 300. And you can see right there, it's 3 seconds. Just a second longer, just in case I don't want to cut off my animation. There we go. Yeah, I could actually cut that off. Do composition settings one more time, and this time I'm going to do 230. Oh, sorry, 230 is actually 3 seconds, so 215. Ah, much better. You can see it's cut off right there. I could even go in a little bit more. Let's do 05. Ah, great. One more time, composition. Add to render queue. Everything looks great. And we're all set. So that's all you have to do, and that's all you have to post today. Please possibly follow along in the storyboarding part, because this is pretty basic stuff, or put a little more into your animation than what I just showed you. I don't want to see just one circle going across the screen. Play around with it, have some fun, make a mess, destroy your composition, break it. Give me some problems, give me some questions. Can't wait to hear back from all of you. Bye.